Okay, I've mentioned various things, but I want to just mention one or two resources right now. Again, a lot of this stuff is online these days, but back in the early days when I was getting into this kind of stuff, I discovered resources like this: How to Talk to Anyone, Anytime, Anywhere. The Secret of Good Communication by the great Larry King. Lael Lowndes, I think is how you pronounce her name. How to Talk to Anybody About Anything. Okay, Breaking the Ice with Everyone from Accountants to Zen Buddhists. Now, these are not complex books. You don't even need to read the whole jolly book, but they will give you ideas on how to talk more, how to engage people in subjects of all sorts of different kinds quickly and easily. They'll give you some tips and tricks, and a lot of that stuff, frankly, you can just find online at this point. Now, how to create a good impression. Let's go a little bit further. After this networking, or what are we calling it? Can't remember. Building connections. After that's happened, it's very important, if you've promised to do something, that you do what you promised to do. We're living in what I can only call the age of flakiness, where people say they're going to do things and don't do them. Some people are just trying to keep you sweet and not have you think ill of them, and they're never going to follow through. Other people are just flaky or disorganized. They don't do the things they promise to do. Now, if you do the thing you promise to do, you're going to stand out from the crowd, and you're more likely to get good engagement with that person and to benefit from that connection, as they will too. It's also a good idea sometimes to send a thank you. Let's give you an example. Jim, I really appreciated that conversation we had the other day. You may not realize it, but it really made a difference. And it's got me thinking much more clearly, much more happily on that subject. And I just want to thank you for that. Okay? Rarely do people take the time to say thank you when it's real and it's meaningful. So if you're the person that conveys appreciation to other people when they've done something that was of value to you, again, you'll stand out from the crowd. Now, some of us, we do this automatically, but we may not do it with new people, new connections, and new possibilities. So we need to make this a conscious and intentional practice. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but learning, and I say learning to stay in touch by updating your contacts with simple, useful, and neutral news, such as a new job or a new post or a new role or a new appointment, a new source of funding, and sending only useful ideas and information that may have be of particular interest to that particular person, that particular audience. And because this builds the link to those people, and it gets them to see you as a person of value, a person worth staying in contact with. I even have personal connections where I'll send them things that I know may well be of interest, and that really does help keep those relationships warm and connective when you're not physically seeing those people for some time. Another important point: take advantage of any referrals. Call Mary and tell her that I, Jim Bloggs, said to call her, and that will get her attention, because she probably gets a lot of phone calls from random people, and she needs to know that I sent you. Okay? Some people know people, and some people know a lot of people. Some people know the most important people, or the most influential, or the most resourceful people that you could ever wish to know. So if somebody gives you a referral and says, tell them I said to call, then you need to do it. And you need to do it quickly, so that they can back you up before they forget you and they forget that conversation. I've come across people occasionally who have so many conversations they can't even remember the conversations that they've had. So if they give you a referral and say, tell them I sent you, you need to take advantage of that quickly. Once or twice in my career, I have failed to take advantage of a referral, and I've kicked myself for years afterwards, thinking I should have called that person when it was the time to call them, when it was timely. Otherwise, you can seriously miss out. So where can you meet the kind of people that you might want to meet? Well, first of all, you tell me. Where can you meet those people? Just take a moment to collect your thoughts on that subject in relation to your goals. Okay, the answer is anywhere there is an opportunity to talk and connect. Okay, now that may be here at this event. Now, there are some people in this virtual classroom that you may well want to actually spend a bit more time getting to know and getting to talk to, who could offer something of use and value to you and who would enjoy doing so. But also, as you're leaving events, or leaving events, before, during and after meetings of various kinds, whether it's with your team or people outside of the building or other groups within your building, within your facility, within your organization. Conferences is a good place to meet people and build good connections. Now, some of these connections, let's not forget, are just peers. they're just colleagues. So for example, we had the National Crop Conference, which we hosted before Christmas. And you can meet people where you develop what we call shared interest groups. So for example, we have an HR group for the Croc Centres, which has been resurrected this new year with all of the pandemic issues and what have you, and it's really functioning better than it's ever functioned before. And that's a very, very helpful group where people have made the effort to get to know one another and build fruitful, mutually beneficial connections, and it's a terrific group right now. So, conferences can help to build and increase that network. So, for example, in that group we've got people not just from within the Eastern Territory, but also in the other territories too. Not too many people, but a good number of people are doing that. And within your communities, there will be people to mix with and just build a basic relationship with, and some of those relationships we'll see there are chances to build fruitful connections in other ways. And when you're traveling, when you're out and about in various contexts in your community too, at parties, if you get invited to parties, very interesting sometimes, I've found this over the years in the Christian world, that we don't necessarily know anybody who's not already a Christian. I remember in my youth being challenged about that time and again. You've got to go and get to know people in the community who are not yet Christians and build some of those relationships. So that could be a good place to meet people and build good connections at dinners, coffee areas, common interest groups in the community, at the gym if you're a part of a gym, peer group meetings, over the phone, via emails, networking with relevant groups, over the web, social media. We haven't even talked about social media in this course. That's a whole separate subject. Training events and so forth. There is no limit really to where you may possibly get to talk to people and even get to know people a little bit, where fruitful shared interest and value conversations can happen. So let's talk a bit now about best practices in terms of collaborating with others. Business cards, okay? I've seen this over the years at points. People that go to events where they don't know people and they're trying to promote themselves or what they do in any sense whatsoever can end up doing what it says here, which is just giving out the business card, okay? Now, it's not always disastrous, but it's just not really very good. Who are you? Why on earth would I want to call you? It's kind of the ultimate question, really. So it's important to get organised and have business cards and have them available to you. I normally keep a few in my wallet, certainly keep a few in my bag, so that I'm never without them if people ask for them. And if you're going to an event where you may need to share that information, then you really need to have them available and ready, and learn to get available and ready with those items. Something else to tell you. I went on a training course once, and I said those words that it says there, which is, I went on this training course, a different one to this one once, down in London, and honestly it was the strangest experience of my life. And this is what I said to people that I'd just met. And it was all about this, which is kind of an interesting subject, but not that great a subject. And the lady that ran it, she was just the strangest individual, and what have you. And guess what? Someone in that course, that training course that I was on, had done that very same training and thought that that lady was wonderful and the training was the best training she'd ever done in her whole life. Do you think me and her talked to each other after that? Nothing was going to be occurring there that could have been a good connection to have made. Or if somebody mentions something, that you're not a fan of, and you go, oh yeah, that's a waste of time, I think. Okay. You may get their back up slightly, you may irritate them slightly, that something that they value is not something that you value. And again, who cares what I think about whatever they're talking about unless they ask? So just be careful when you're having these delicate interactions that you are avoiding any kind of negatives. If you say, oh, I hate whatever it is, the president or whatever, sometimes it just, it creates a distraction from a valuable interaction happening. So just be careful not to say anything negative until you know it's safe to do so. The Red Cross. Oh, I'm not a fan of the Red Cross. Okay, well, if they are a fan of the Red Cross, they don't want to hear it. And now is not the time to talk about it. And do we even care about the Red Cross for purposes of building this connection, this relationship? Probably not. So, boldly telling somebody, oh, I'm not a fan of the Red Cross because of this, that, and the other. Is it timely? Is it relevant? Is it necessary? Because negatives tend to get in the way of constructive relationship building. Let's talk a little bit now about time. Okay, timekeeping. Some of us are very time conscious. Some of us are efficient with time, almost to the point of being too efficient, some of us. Others of us struggle to get places on time and are not that time conscious. So when it comes to building relationships, what do we need to be careful to do? When you're going to any kind of event, any kind of meeting, it's really good to get there early. Okay, not too early, but just a bit early. The magic sometimes happens when you get there a little bit early. Okay, I'll give you an example. I went to a meeting recently, a very important meeting. I had to go with someone else, and we got there just a bit early, and this allowed us to have interaction with the individual, a very important individual we needed to interact with, and that was good interaction. And then when they came to get us, because they were ready and what have you, we were much more settled, we were much more ready, and the first impressions we made were far more powerful than they might have been if we just got there on time and all the rest of it. So getting there early can be creating windows of opportunity where the magic can happen. Using any breaks and any lunch periods and breaks wisely. Okay, yes, take a rest, take a break from whatever's going on, relax, but also gently engage people to some degree. There's nothing worse than the person who sits there quietly, doesn't talk to anybody, disappears on the breaks and the lunch, and then comes back pretty much having barely spoken to a soul. It just doesn't create a good impression, and frankly is a waste of opportunity to get to know people where good connections could potentially be made. It's also good at the end to stay a little. You know, some of the valuable conversations happen not just with the speaker at an event or the speakers at an event, but at the edges of those times where people say, you know, can I just ask you a question? You know, have you ever thought about this, or have you gotten involved in that, or what have you? And that's when sometimes people are more relaxed at the end of an event and they're willing and ready to talk. So we're living in the age of communication, but frankly communication is still the great big morass of confusion and poor practice that it ever was. Let's take some examples for you. Okay, we need to understand that despite all of our connectivity today, that nothing beats meeting someone and engaging with someone for the first time. Nothing beats face-to-face. Okay, it's always the most ideal. If I need to have an important conversation with somebody, I will always strive to have a face-to-face interaction whenever possible, especially if it's a relationship of significance. So you might say to them, you know, it's great to talk on the phone. Could we just sit down for a half hour or an hour and really have a good quality conversation if it's something important, for example, that you need to do? Now, that's not always possible, but if it's not possible, don't send people a jolly email. Okay? Most of us today are getting far more emails than we ever wanted, and it's very difficult, especially if they don't know you or they barely know you, to take your email seriously and give it the attention that you might wish for it to deserve. So phone people. The telephone still works. Not everybody will get back to you, but majority of people will make an effort to get back to you by phone more than they will ever on an email. Okay? If you do meet with people face to face, if you do phone people or what have you, and you say, okay, what I'll do is now, having talked to you, I'll send you an email. Okay, then your email matters. Then your email has significance and it has their attention. They'll notice your email far more, and it will more than likely get far more attention if they've met you and they're expecting your email, or if they've talked to you on the phone and then they're expecting your email. Now, only email, in other words, if you can't do either of the above. Otherwise, it's so easy for people to either miss or fail to respond to your email, or to just kind of ignore it because they've no idea who you are and what you want. There's also a place for what we sometimes these days call snail mail. Apparently the younger generation call email snail mail, but for most of us it means paper-based mail. Okay, it's not actually used that much these days, and so it can be good occasionally. I remember once I sent in the early days a newsletter around to people that I had built some connection with in this building, and I got a number of emails from people saying, I really liked your newsletter, it was quick, to the point, and useful information. And so don't underestimate either the use and the value of snail mail. Other things to do. Got to get used to asking for things, okay? People are remarkably willing, usually only if and when it's good for them too, but sometimes people are willing to do things regardless of whether there's anything in it for them. But to do that, you've got to know what we've been teaching you on this course, which is, what am I trying to achieve? Who might be good to talk to about what I want to achieve? Who might want to get involved and contribute in some way? And am I mentioning the things that I need to mention to those people? Because if you don't tell people, they can't help. If I need help here with my admin, there's a lady that can help me with my admin. But if I don't actually remember what's my goal to get my admin done, and who can help me with my goal, oh, that'll be my colleague over there, and actually then go talk to her and make it happen, it just won't happen. And that's not her fault, that's my fault, because I didn't ask for help with the things that I could legitimately get help with. And also, very, very powerful rule here in terms of how you approach this kind of thing is to expect nothing. Okay? When you're meeting people for the first time, they have no vested interest in talking to you at all, much less getting involved with you at all. They owe us nothing. We may be the wonderful Salvation Army, but people still don't owe us anything. And we don't owe them anything. Okay? So when you start to build connections and try to build more progressively significant connections with people, just expect that they won't get back to you. Expect that they, for whatever reasons, are not going to respond. Then what will happen is you'll be pleasantly surprised sometimes when they do. Okay? We mentioned earlier the numbers game. Sometimes you have to build a number of connections in order to have a chance of any of those connections coming to fruition. Because you see, some people, they want to get involved with the army, they want to do good things, they want to contribute, but they just forget. Or they just got too many other things going on, and they're just not that focused on making happen the things that they say they want to make happen. So we just got to expect that we're going to meet a number of people where these connections are just never going to go anywhere. So the more positive connections you make, the better. Notice too how surprising people are. Again, I'm still amazed at times how willing people are to do things, and how sometimes they'll surprise you. You'll be amazed at points, people's willingness to get involved. And again, sometimes it's not them, it's the people they know. People know people, and the more people you can connect with and build a good connection with, the more chances you've got of building connections that go places. Just notice how surprising people are, because when you do, you go, wow, there is value in building these connections, especially these strategic connections that are linked to the goals and the objectives that I have. Another word of caution, again, learn from bitter experience here, be careful what you promise and be careful what you give to these other folks that you're connecting with, because you have to ask yourself sometimes, I've only got so much time, so many hours in the day. What's most important? Is there value in promising to do something or doing something or giving something for me, not just for them? Because some people, willingly, knowingly or not, will take advantage of your willingness to give. And some of us are givers, too much givers sometimes. But that willingness can be something that people will tap into, and the predators, sadly, will take as much advantage as they can and may not give anything in return. They may not reciprocate. And sometimes that's not a conscious thing, it's just how things work out. But you've got to be careful. Am I giving, am I spreading, my sort of relationship building seeds too liberally and actually overcommitting and, planting too many seeds or giving too much and doing too much in order to try to plant seeds that it may not just be worth doing? You've got to really think, is involvement with anyone else or any other organisation going to be worth certain types of time, and is it worth it or not, because it may or may not. And link other people to other people if that helps them. If you get somebody involved with an agency, I remember once in one of our rehab centres they said, unfortunately we cannot continue this relationship that they had with a resident, and they sent them off to somewhere else, and they were so impressed that they did that in such a graceful manner that not only did they score points and build relationship with that person longer term and their family, but the other agency also said, wow, this is great, this is good for everybody, and they may well return the favour. So when you link others together for their mutual benefit, not so much yours, sometimes you build what we call social capital, which is where you build good respect and sort of put deposits in the bank account with those people that can then bear fruit a bit later on. So investing to benefit longer term is definitely something to consider doing. And as we said earlier, I'm going to remind you again here, notice those who network well. What are they doing that you should be doing? I'll give you an example. There was a gentleman I worked with. I'm going to show you his video actually in a moment. He was already a bit of a relational person. That side of it came easy, but he needed to get a little bit more strategic, a little bit more organised. And if you were to watch him now, you'll see him do different things in conversation. You'll see him getting contact details. You'll see him assessing, is this somebody who does what they say they're going to do, and so forth. He's become more strategic, and as you're going to see in a moment, he has done phenomenally well in terms of building awareness of what he's doing and gaining support for it in the city of Boston. Like I said earlier, again, repetition is the mother of skill. Do end conversations where appropriate with some kind of decisions or suggestions on what next. Okay? I'll call you over the weekend. I'll call you next week. I'll email you that thing and we'll take it from there. Let's have a meeting. Let's have coffee, whatever it is. And again, listen, because few people do. And you'll pick up on more. They'll feel more deeply connected to you because you're actually being present in this busy, busy life, this busy, busy world. Do steer conversations and be assertive. This is a sort of a round off, really, of some of the things that we talked about. And be genuine. A lady came up to one of my old bosses once and she said, "Oh, who are you? Where are you from?" And they said who they were and where they were from. And she went, "Oh, all right, okay." And they just walked away because there was nothing in it for them to continue talking to this person any longer. Now, that is fake, faker than fake. And that's the last thing you want to be. So be you, be patient, be just open-minded and relaxed, and be ready to give witness to whoever you get to give witness to in this way, and you will be amazed where that kind of thing can go. This is a sort of closing tip really here in this course material to do with being a magic, it's a magic super tip to get incredible things happening. It's good to get to know good networkers. It's good to get to know good natural relationship builders, because when you know those people, sometimes all you have to do is say, I don't suppose you happen to know anybody who could do the thing that you need help with, or have you. Those good networkers usually know people. That friend of mine, the DC, in his city, which is the second largest city in the UK, he knows all the major movers and shakers. If he wants to get something done, make something happen, get some backing and some help and some resources, he knows people. And if you need help, he could probably help you if he thinks it's a good thing to be doing. So, asking people, do you happen to know anybody who could be good to talk to or could help us in some way, shape or form? Utter magic to get to know the people who know people. This is where, advisory board development comes in. People who know people who know how to get things done in this town, people who know how to find donations, resources, etc. Worth its weight in gold. And then it saves you having to become that person because you know people who know people. Let's talk about some tools to make it happen.